For 35 years, I slept next to a man I thought I knew until the day I discovered that each sunrise hid a truth that would change everything. My name is Mary Helen. I'm 78 years old, and today I'm going to tell you the most painful and at the same time the most important story of my life. It's a story I've kept for years, with fear, with shame, but that now needs to be told. Before I start, I ask you, please, if you can, leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel to help me continue telling these stories, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from, what city, what state. I love knowing that people from all over the country are listening to me. It gives me strength to continue. Well, I'll start from the very beginning, back in 1967. I was only 21 years old when I met Joseph. He was 24. It was at a church social here in Chicago, in the South Side neighborhood. Back then, things were very different from today, you know? We didn't date like you date today. No. Everything was slower, more modest. My father, God rest his soul, was very strict. When Joseph showed up at our house for the first time to ask to date me, I thought my father was going to send him away right then. But no. Joseph was a serious young man. Hard-working, honest. He worked at a steel mill there in Gary, Indiana. My father liked him. We dated for a year and a half, always with the door open, always with my mother nearby watching. When he asked me to marry him in 1968, I was so happy that I cried all night. We got married in December of that year. It was a simple ceremony at the neighborhood church with few people. Back then the country was, how can I say, it was different. There was a heavy feeling in the air. People spoke quietly about politics. My father always said, "Mary, don't get involved in men's business. Don't talk about the government. Don't talk about anything that's not your concern." I obeyed. Joseph was a quiet man, very quiet. At the beginning of our marriage, I thought it was shyness, you know? I thought that with time he would loosen up more, but no. He remained quiet. He worked all day at the steel mill, came home tired, had dinner, watched a little television. We had managed to buy a second-hand TV, which was a luxury back then, and went to sleep. The same routine every day. But there was one thing that I found strange from the beginning, from the first day of marriage. Joseph would wake up at 4 a.m, every single day, 4 a.m. sharp. And you know what he did? He would get out of bed slowly so as not to wake me, but I always woke up because I'm a light sleeper and go straight to the bathroom. He would lock the door and stay in there for an hour, a whole hour. At first, in the first few weeks, I didn't say anything. I thought it was something with his bowels, those things you don't ask about, right? But then a month went by, 2 months, 6 months, and every day the same thing. 4 a.m, an hour in the bathroom, always locked. I started to get worried. I thought, my God, is Joseph sick? Does he have some serious problem and doesn't want to tell me? One day, it must have been about 8 months into our marriage, I asked. We were having breakfast, and I gathered courage. "Joseph, are you healthy? I notice that you wake up early every day and spend a long time in the bathroom." He turned red, red as a beet. He looked away, stirred his coffee with the spoon, and said quietly, "It's my bowels, Mary. Since I was a child, I've had this problem. Constipation, then loose bowels. It's an annoying thing, but it's nothing serious, don't worry." And that was it. He changed the subject right away, and I didn't insist. Back then, we didn't insist much, you know. A woman had to respect her husband's space. That's how my mother taught me. The years went by. We had our first son in 1970, John. Then, in 1972, came Anna, 2 beautiful, healthy children who filled our house with joy. Joseph was a present father as much as he could be. He worked hard to support the family. But that routine never changed, never. 4 a.m, bathroom, 1 hour, door locked. I tried to get used to it, I really tried. I told myself, "Mary, this is silly. The man has bowel problems, stop obsessing." But there are things that you try to push to the back of your mind, and they don't go away, you know? They stay there bothering you, growing, becoming a ball of anguish. What bothered me wasn't just the fact that he woke up early and went to the bathroom. It was the way. He went slowly, silently, as if he didn't want anyone to notice. And when I woke up, because I always woke up with the sound of the bed creaking when he got up, I would lie there, in the dark, listening. And you know what I heard? They weren't normal bathroom sounds from someone with bowel problems. I heard water running quietly, then silence. Then some strange noises, as if he were handling things, opening and closing something. From time to time, very rarely, I heard what seemed to be a muffled moan, a deep sigh. I didn't know. I couldn't understand. Once, this must have been about 10 years into our marriage, around 1978, I talked to my mother. We were at her house having coffee, and I vented. "Mom, Joseph has a strange habit. Every day he wakes up at 4 in the morning and spends an hour locked in the bathroom. Every day, Mom. It's been 10 years of this." My mother looked at me with that face of someone about to give a sermon and said, "Mary Helen, you have your head full of nonsense. The man works like a dog to support you and the kids. If he wants to spend an hour in the bathroom, leave the man alone. That's his business. You should be grateful to have a hard-working and honest husband. Stop looking for problems where there aren't any." And that was it. I even felt bad for having said anything. I thought I really was being an annoying wife, one of those who complain about everything. So I shut my mouth and tried not to think about it anymore. But I couldn't, people, I couldn't, because as the years went by, I noticed other things. Joseph always wore long-sleeved shirts. Always. It didn't matter if it was 100 degrees in the Chicago summer, long-sleeved shirt. When I asked, he said it was because at the steel mill it was dangerous, sparks could fly, those things. It made sense. So I didn't question it, but there was more. He never ever took his shirt off in front of anyone, not even in front of me, his wife. When we had marital intimacy, you know, he always turned off the light, always in the dark, and if I tried to turn it on, he got nervous. He said he preferred it that way, that it was more romantic. At first I even thought it was sweet, but then it got weird, and there was something else I noticed. Sometimes, when he was sitting on the couch watching television, he would grimace in pain and put his hand on his back or on the side of his body. When I asked if he was okay, he said it was fatigue from work, from the weight he carried. "Steel mill work is heavy, Mary. It's normal to hurt." And I believed him. The years kept passing. 1980, 1985, 1990. Life went on. The kids grew up, went to school. John even started working young to help at home. We lived tight financially, but happy, or at least I thought we were happy. Joseph continued being a man of few words, but he was affectionate in his own way. He brought his paycheck home every month. He didn't drink, didn't go to bars, didn't give reasons for jealousy. He was a good husband by the standards we knew. But that 4 a.m. thing, that never stopped, never. And as I got older, it consumed me from the inside. It started to become an obsession. I would look at the clock at night, before going to sleep and think, in a few hours he's going to wake up again, go to the bathroom again, and I'm going to continue not knowing what's happening. I started having bad thoughts, thoughts that made me ashamed of myself. Was he using drugs? But no, that didn't make sense. Joseph was too serious. Did he have some serious illness and was hiding it from me so as not to worry me? Was he, God forgive me for thinking this, did he have another woman and was writing letters to her in the bathroom at dawn? That last thought drove me crazy. I know it seems absurd, but when you live with a mystery for decades, your mind starts creating the craziest stories. I started noticing everything. I looked for lipstick on his shirt, different perfume, anything that would prove he was cheating on me, but I never found anything, nothing at all. One day, this must have been around 1995, I exploded. I couldn't take it anymore. We were having dinner, just the two of us. The kids were already adults and had left home. And I said, without beating around the bush, Joseph, I need to know what you do in the bathroom every morning. It's been more than 25 years of this. 25 years, Joseph. Do you think I'm stupid? Do you think I don't notice? His face turned white, white as paper. He put down his fork on the plate, wiped his mouth with the napkin, and looked at me with these eyes. People. They were eyes of such fear, such sadness, that my heart squeezed right away. Mary, he said with a trembling voice, I ask you, please, don't insist on this. I'm not doing anything wrong. I swear on my dead mother, I'm not doing anything wrong, but I can't talk about it. I can't. What do you mean you can't talk? I shouted. I lost my patience. I'm your wife. We've been married for over 25 years. Don't you trust me? He got up from the table, and for the first time in all those years, I saw tears in his eyes, real tears running down his face. It's not a question of trust, Mary. It's a question of protecting you and the kids. Please leave me alone with this. I beg you. And he left the house, went for a walk down the street. He was gone for almost 2 hours. When he came back, we didn't talk about it anymore. But that night, I didn't sleep at all. I kept asking myself, protect us from what? What was he so afraid of? The following years were the worst, because now I knew there was something really wrong. It wasn't just a strange habit. It wasn't a bowel problem. It was something serious, something that made my husband cry and talk about protecting the family. I started paying more attention. I noticed that sometimes he came back from the pharmacy. Because yes, I discovered he went to the pharmacy every week, sometimes more than once, with little bags he would hide in the bathroom. When I asked what it was, he said it was medicine for back pain, old people stuff. But it was always hidden, always with that air of secrecy. And there was that smell. There was a smell in the bathroom after he left at dawn. It wasn't a bad smell, no. It was the smell of medicine, of ointment, those strong ointments people use for muscle pain. But why use ointment in secret? Why wake up at 4 a.m. for that? The year 2000 came, turn of the century. I was already 54 years old. Joseph was 57. We had grandchildren, a life built. But that mystery continued there between us, like an invisible wall separating us. It was on a day in March 2003, 35 years after our marriage, that I finally made the most difficult decision of my life. I was going to discover the truth, whatever it cost. That decision didn't come overnight, you know? It was forming inside me gradually, like a storm that gathers dark clouds in the sky, until there's no other way, the storm is going to break. I spent weeks thinking, planning, feeling like the worst wife in the world for planning to spy on my own husband. But at the same time, I couldn't take it anymore. It was 35 years carrying that anguish, that doubt gnawing from inside. The month of March 2003 was especially hot, that muggy Chicago heat that gives no break even at night. I remember that at that time I had terrible insomnia. I drank chamomile tea, lemon balm tea, those things the neighbor said would help, but nothing worked. I would lie there, looking at the dark ceiling of the bedroom, listening to the sound of cars outside and counting the minutes until 4 a.m, because I knew that when it was 4 o'clock, Joseph was going to get up. Like a Swiss watch, that man never failed. Not even when he had the flu, not even when he was too tired, not on holidays, not on Sundays. Every single day, 4 a.m, he would get up. I started observing more, without him noticing, of course. I noticed that when he got up, he made a strange movement. He would put his hand on his back, as if preparing for something that hurt. Then he would breathe deeply, really deeply, as if gathering courage. And only then would he get out of bed. One night, about 3 days before that fateful day, I pretended to be asleep, but kept one eye half open, just watching. I saw when he went to the closet, we had an old wooden closet that creaked every time it opened, and took something from inside. It was dark. I couldn't see exactly what it was. It looked like a plastic bag, one of those from the pharmacy. He tucked it under his arm, along with a towel, and went to the bathroom. My heart was racing. I waited about 5 minutes, then got up very slowly. Our house was small, a simple 2-story. The bedroom was upstairs, and the bathroom he used was downstairs near the kitchen. I went down the stairs on tiptoes, praying the steps wouldn't creak. Each step seemed like an eternity. When I got near the bathroom, I stood there in the dark hallway, leaning against the wall, just listening. I heard the faucet opening, then closing. Then a sound of plastic being opened, like medicine packaging or something. Then, silence. A silence that lasted so long that I even thought he had fainted in there. And then I heard. It was quiet, so quiet you could barely hear it. But I heard. It was a moan of pain, real pain, the kind you can't hold back. My whole body froze. I gathered courage, approached the door more, but at that moment, such a great fear hit me that I ran back to the bedroom. I went up the stairs, almost flying. I got under the covers, pretending I was asleep. When he came back, about 40 minutes later, I was trembling. He lay down on the bed very slowly, and I felt the mattress sink with his weight. I heard when he sighed, a long and tired sigh, and I stayed there motionless, with my heart beating so hard that I was sure he was hearing it. The following days were of endless agony. I couldn't look at his face properly. I felt guilty for hiding that I knew, or at least that I suspected, that something was very wrong. At the same time, I felt angry. Angry at him for hiding. Angry at myself for not having the courage to confront. Angry at the whole situation. It was on a Thursday, March 27th, 2003. I remember the exact date because it was my father's birthday, who had died about 5 years earlier. I had spent the previous day organizing things for his birthday in memory, looking at old photos, crying a little. I was emotionally shaken. That night, Joseph and I had dinner in silence. He ate little, said he wasn't very hungry. He complained that his back was hurting more than normal. He took medicine right in front of me, some painkiller we had in the kitchen. Then we went to watch the news on television. There was a story about I don't know what. I didn't really pay attention. My mind was elsewhere. When it was about 10 at night, he said he was going to bed. He was tired. I said I was going to stay a little longer, that I was going to wash the dinner dishes. He went upstairs. I stayed there in the kitchen, washing the dishes very slowly, stalling, waiting for him to fall deeply asleep. I only went up to the bedroom almost at midnight. He was already sleeping, snoring quietly in that way of his. I lay down, but didn't close my eyes. I couldn't. I kept looking at the clock on the nightstand, the hand moving slowly, slowly, each minute seeming like an hour. Midnight and a half. 1 in the morning, 1:30, 2, 2:30, 3, 3:30. My body was tense, like a violin string. I had already decided. That dawn I was going to see what was happening. I wasn't going to back down anymore. When the clock struck 3:55, I was already completely awake, all senses alert. Joseph moved in bed, made that movement of putting his hand on his back, breathed deeply. I quickly closed my eyes, pretending I was asleep. I felt when he got up, heard his feet on the cold bedroom floor. I heard when he went to the closet. The closet creaked. He took something. He stood there for a few seconds, as if thinking about something or gathering strength. Then he left the bedroom. I heard his steps going down the stairs, one step at a time, very slowly. I waited about 2 minutes. 2 minutes that seemed like 2 hours. My heart was racing, my hands sweating cold. I got out of bed carefully, took my robe that was hanging on the chair, put it on. I went down the stairs like a ghost, stepping only on the edge of each step to not make noise. Downstairs, everything was dark. There was only the weak light from the street lamp coming through the living room window. I went toward the hallway, where the bathroom was. The door was closed, the light on under the crack. I heard the water running. I approached. Each step of mine was calculated. I was so scared that my legs were shaking. I don't even really know what I was afraid of discovering an affair, of discovering a terminal illness, of discovering something that would change my life forever. Maybe I was afraid of all of this together. I got very close to the door. I put my ear to it, trying to hear better. The water had stopped running. Now there was a sound of paper being torn or packaging being opened. Then silence again. Then that moan, that low moan of pain that I had heard days before. It was at that moment that I noticed. The door was old. It had one of those old, big keyholes. The key was always on the outside. I took the key slowly, without making noise, and put it in the pocket of my robe. My heart was beating so hard that I thought I was going to faint right there. I breathed deeply 3 times, trying to calm down, trying to gather courage. I thought, Mary, you've come this far. Don't turn back now. You need to know. You deserve to know. I crouched down slowly. My knees cracked. Old people stuff, right? And I froze with fear that he had heard, but I didn't hear any reaction from inside. I continued descending until I was at the height of the keyhole. I closed one eye, put the other very close to the hole. At first I couldn't see anything right, just some blurry shapes. I blinked a few times until my vision adjusted. And then I saw. Jesus Christ in heaven. I saw. Joseph was with his back to the door, shirtless, completely shirtless. And what I saw, people, what I saw at that moment was something I never in my life imagined I would see. His back was a destruction, there's no other word, it was a destruction of human flesh. There were scars everywhere, big scars, small ones, some looked old, whitish, others more red, as if they were more recent or had never healed properly. There were round marks that looked like burns, several, one next to the other, going down his spine. I put my hand to my mouth to not scream. Tears started running down my face without me even noticing. I kept looking. I couldn't look away, even wanting to. He took a gauze, those from the pharmacy, and started cleaning one of the wounds that was still open on the right side, near the ribs. When the gauze touched the wound, he curled up all in pain, bit the towel that was in his other hand to not make noise. That broke my heart into 1,000 pieces. Then he took a bottle of a liquid, it seemed to be that red mercurochrome that stings terribly, and started putting it on the wounds with a cotton ball. I saw when his face contorted in pain. I saw the tears running down his face, and he was in silence. In absolute silence, enduring all that pain alone, without making noise, without asking for help. He turned a little to the side, and that's when I saw the rest. His left arm had marks, too. His shoulder. When he raised his arm to reach a wound on his back, I saw there were scars under his arm, too. And on the side of his body, there was a purple mark, dark, as if they were broken ribs that hadn't healed properly. He took an ointment, one of those thick and smelly ointments for burns, and started putting it on the older scars, making slow circular movements. With each touch of his own skin, he grimaced. It was when he went to get something that was on the sink that he turned more to the front, and I could see his chest. The chest also had marks, not as many as the back, but it had. And there was something that caught my attention. They were strange marks, long, as if they were from chains or rope, marks from something that tied him very tightly. I couldn't take it anymore. My whole body was shaking. I wanted to go in there, hug him, ask what had happened, who had done that. But at the same time, I was paralyzed. I couldn't move. I couldn't process what I was seeing. He took the shirt that was hanging on the hook behind the door and started putting it on slowly, carefully, as if each movement hurt. When the shirt covered that destroyed body, he stood there in front of the sink mirror, just looking at his own reflection. And you know what destroyed me even more? It was seeing the expression on his face. It was an expression of shame, of guilt, as if those marks were his fault, as if he had done something wrong and deserved it. He ran his hand over his face, wiped the tears, breathed deeply a few times, straightened his shoulders as if he were pulling himself together. I moved away from the door quickly. I didn't want him to see me there. I went up the stairs running in silence. I got into the bedroom, got under the covers. I was sobbing quietly, trying to muffle the crying in the pillow. I heard when he came up, heard when he entered the bedroom, heard when he lay down on his side of the bed. And there we were, both of us, each pretending the other was asleep, me crying in silence, him lying motionless, breathing deeply. The sun started to brighten outside. It must have been about 6 in the morning. I hadn't closed my eyes. My head was spinning non-stop. Those images wouldn't leave my mind. The scars, the burns, the rope marks, the pain on his face, the shame. And then everything started to make sense. The long-sleeved shirt always, his way of not taking off his clothes in front of anyone, the grimaces of pain when he moved, the hidden medicines, the constant sadness he carried in his eyes even when he was smiling. But what didn't make sense was who had done that, when, why, and why he hid it from me, why he carried it alone during all those years. I got out of bed when I heard him getting up. He went to the bathroom again, the upstairs one this time, just to do the usual. I went down to the kitchen, prepared coffee. My hands were shaking so much that I almost dropped the pot of hot coffee. When he came down, already dressed for work with that checkered long-sleeved shirt he always wore, I had my back turned, stirring something on the stove. I couldn't look at him, not at that moment. I was afraid he would see in my face that I knew. "Good morning," he said with that tired voice of his. "Good morning," I answered, still with my back turned. "Coffee is ready." He sat at the table. I served the coffee, bread with butter, as I did every day. I sat on the other side of the table, but didn't eat anything. I just kept stirring the coffee with the spoon, looking at the cup. "Are you okay, Mary?" he asked. I raised my eyes to him, looked right in his eyes, and what I saw there was fear. Fear that I knew. Fear that I had discovered. "I am," I lied. "I just slept badly. I had a nightmare." He nodded, relieved, and went back to eating the bread. He finished his coffee, took the lunchbox I had prepared the night before, gave me a kiss on the forehead, as he did every day, and left for work. When the door closed, I collapsed, sat on the kitchen floor, and cried. I cried everything I had held during the dawn. I cried for his pain, for the secret he carried, for all those years of silent suffering, and I cried because I knew that now I had an impossible choice ahead. Did I pretend I didn't know anything and continue living that lie, or did I confront him and risk destroying everything? Those days, after that dawn, were the most difficult of my entire life. I woke up every day with that image engraved in my head. The scars, the burns, the pain on his face. I couldn't forget even for a second. It was as if someone had put a movie in my head that kept playing non-stop without me being able to turn it off. The worst of all was having to pretend that everything was normal, pretend that I didn't know anything. Every time Joseph came home from work, I had to smile, ask how his day was, serve dinner, talk about trivial things. And inside, I was falling apart. Every time I looked at him, all I saw was that destroyed body, those marks of suffering. I started noticing things I didn't pay so much attention to before, the way he moved. There were days he was slower, more careful. I noticed that when it rained, he got worse, complained more about pain, took more medicine. It must be because old scars hurt when the weather changes, right? That's what they always say. A week after that night, I was organizing the closet because I needed to do something to not go completely crazy. And I found that pharmacy bag he was hiding. It was there in the back, behind his clothes. I looked around, even knowing he was at work and there was nobody at home. My heart raced. I knew I was invading his privacy, but I needed to understand. I opened the bag slowly, as if it were a bomb that could explode. Inside there were pharmacy things. Gauze, tape, that mercurochrome I had seen him using, an ointment for burns that was imported, must have cost a fortune, a bottle of a medicine I had never seen, with a complicated name I couldn't even pronounce right. I took the bottle, read the insert. It was for chronic pain, the kind of pain that never goes away. I sat on the edge of the bed, holding that medicine bottle, and cried. I cried because I imagined him every day taking that medicine to endure the pain. Every day pretending everything was fine. Every day, waking up at 4 in the morning to take care of those wounds in secret, afraid someone would see, ashamed of something that wasn't even his fault, because I already knew deep down what had happened. I wasn't stupid. I had lived through that era, the 60s, 70s. We heard things, whispers, stories of people who disappeared, of people who were arrested and came back different or didn't come back. My own father, God rest his soul, had warned me at that time. Mary, don't get involved in anything. Don't talk about anything. Pretend you don't see, don't hear anything. But I never imagined that Joseph, my Joseph, who was so quiet, so peaceful, who only went to work and came back home. How? When? Why? I put everything back in the bag, exactly as it was. I hid it again in the back of the closet. I went to the kitchen, washed my face in the sink, tried to pull myself together, but I couldn't stop thinking. That night, when he came home from work, I was quieter than normal. He noticed. "Did something happen, Mary?" he asked, while taking off his shoes at the door. "No, nothing," I lied. "I'm just a little tired." He looked at me in that way of his, as if trying to read my soul. Then he nodded and went to take a bath. His normal bath at the end of the afternoon, quick, not that one at 4 in the morning that lasted an hour. During dinner, I tried to make conversation about the past, not directly, but kind of generally, you know? "Joseph, do you remember when we met in 1967? He raised his eyes from the plate, kind of surprised by the question. "Of course I remember. How could I forget? You were wearing that blue dress with white polka dots." I smiled. He really remembered. That time was different, wasn't it? The country was. It was strange. He got tense. I saw his shoulders stiffening. "It was," he said dryly. He went back to eating. "You never talked much about that time, about what you did, where you went." "I worked, Mary. I worked at the steel mill. You know that." "I know, but there was more going on. We heard stories." He dropped his fork on the plate. The sound echoed in the silent kitchen. "What stories?" His voice was different. It had a hardness I rarely heard. I got a little scared. "Nothing, just stories people commented on, people who disappeared, those things." He breathed deeply several times. I saw the vein in his neck pulsing. "Mary, I already told you, don't mess with business that's not your concern. I worked, period. The rest doesn't matter." And he got up from the table, left the plate half full, and went to the living room to watch television. I stayed there alone in the kitchen, with my heart tight. I had touched a wound, not a physical wound, but a wound of his soul. I didn't try to talk about it anymore in the following days, but I needed to understand. I needed answers. So I did something I had never done in my life. I went to the public library downtown. I took 2 buses to get there. The lady at the library looked at me kind of strange when I asked. A 57-year-old lady asking to see old newspapers from the 60s and 70s. But she took me to a room in the back where they kept those old yellowed newspapers. I stayed there for hours, hours leafing through those newspapers. And what I read, what I read made me sick. There were stories about people arrested, about torture, about disappeared people. Of course, the newspapers of the time didn't speak openly. Everything was kind of hidden between the lines, but whoever wanted to understand, understood. I read about FBI operations, about the places where they took people, about the methods they used. Electric shock, waterboarding, beatings, burns, my God in heaven, burns with cigarettes, with hot iron. I had to get out of there running. I went to the library bathroom and threw up. I stayed there clinging to the bathroom sink, shaking, imagining my Joseph going through that. My Joseph, who wouldn't hurt a fly, being burned, being tortured. I went back home on the bus, without even seeing the landscape passing by the window. I got home before him. I sat on the living room couch and stayed there motionless, looking at nothing. When he arrived, I could barely greet him properly. "Did you go to the doctor?" he asked, worried. "You look terrible." "No, I just think I ate something that made me sick." He insisted I lie down, brought tea, kept caressing my head, and that broke me even more, because there he was taking care of me, worried about me, being this good man he always was. And me knowing he was suffering alone for decades, and I couldn't do anything, because he wouldn't let me. A few more days passed. I had stopped sleeping properly. I took medicine for anxiety that the doctor had prescribed a long time ago and I had never used. I lost weight. Joseph noticed, got even more worried. "Mary, you need to go to a real doctor. You're getting sick." "I'm fine," I insisted. But I wasn't. I was far from being fine. It was on a Saturday afternoon. We were at home, he was fixing something in the backyard. I was in the kitchen preparing lunch. Suddenly, I heard a loud noise, a moan, and then silence. I dropped everything and ran to the backyard. Joseph was on the ground, holding his back, his face contorted in pain. "Joseph!" I screamed, crouching beside him. What happened? I slipped, fell badly. Oh, Mary, my spine. He was sweating cold. The pain must have been terrible. I tried to help him get up, but he moaned even louder. "No, wait a little." I stayed there, crouched beside him, holding his hand, not knowing what to do. After a few minutes, he managed to sit leaning against the wall, but I saw when he put his hand on his back in a specific place and grimaced even worse. "Let me see," I said, and before he could stop me, I lifted his shirt from behind. He tried to push me, but was too weak from pain, and I saw again. In daylight this time, the scars, the marks. One of them had opened with the fall. It was bleeding. "Joseph," I whispered with a broken voice. He looked at me, and in that look there was everything. There was fear, there was shame, there was despair. There were 35 years of secret wanting to explode out. "Mary, He started, but couldn't continue. Tears started to fall. I hugged him from behind carefully not to hurt more. I put my face on his back, on that destroyed back, and cried together. "I know," I said quietly. "I know, my love. I saw." He became rigid in my arms. "You saw?" "I saw. That dawn, almost 2 weeks ago, I looked through the keyhole. Forgive me. Forgive me for invading like that, but I couldn't take not knowing anymore." We stayed there, both of us on the backyard floor, hugging, crying. I don't know how much time passed. It could be minutes, it could be hours. Time had stopped. He was the one who pulled away first. He wiped his face with his hand, tried to pull himself together. "Help me get in," he asked. I helped him get up slowly. He was limping, his spine locked. We went inside the house, to the bedroom. He lay face down on the bed, moaning in pain. "I'll get ice," I said. "No, stay here, please." I sat on the edge of the bed beside him. I put my hand in his hair, caressing. "Are you going to tell me?" I asked quietly. He was silent for so long that I thought he had fallen asleep. But then he spoke. "I'm afraid." "Afraid of what?" "Afraid you'll see me differently after. Afraid you'll be disgusted with me. Afraid of you." "Joseph," I interrupted with a firm voice, "we've been married for 35 years. 35 years? Do you think anything you tell me is going to change what I feel for you?" "It can change," he said. "Because you'll know that the man you married, that this man isn't strong, isn't brave, is a coward who broke, who begged, who—" His voice was lost in a choked cry. "Stop!" I said, lying beside him. "Stop it! You're the strongest man I know. You woke up every day for 35 years at 4 in the morning to take care of wounds that never healed. You worked all these years carrying pain. You built a family, raised 2 children, always giving your best. How is that not being strong?" "You don't understand," he murmured. "Then make me understand. Tell me what happened." He turned his face to me, eyes red and swollen from crying so much. And I saw at that moment something I had never seen before. I saw young Joseph, the guy in his early 20s I met. I saw the fear he must have felt. I saw the pain. I saw everything. "Tomorrow," he said. "Tomorrow I'll tell you everything. Today I can't, Today the pain is too strong, both from here, he pointed to his back, and from here, he pointed to his chest, to his heart. Okay, I said, when you're ready. I stayed there with him until he fell asleep from exhaustion. Then I went down, heated the food, but couldn't eat anything. I sat at the kitchen table, looking at the cold food on the plate, thinking about everything, thinking that the next day, finally, after 35 years, I was going to know the truth, the complete truth. And at the same time, I wanted to know, part of me was afraid of what I was going to hear, afraid of not being strong enough to endure the pain he had carried alone for so long. But I needed to be strong for him, for us. Because if there's one thing 35 years of marriage taught me, it's that we can endure much more than we imagine when it's for love. That night, neither of us slept well. I heard him moving in bed, moaning in pain. At dawn, he got up, but didn't go to the downstairs bathroom. He went to the upstairs one, took his medicines, and came back to bed. When the sun rose on Sunday, April 13th, 2003, I knew that would be the day that would change everything. For better or for worse, there was no way to know, but it would be the day the truth would finally come out. That Sunday dawned cloudy. The sky was gray, heavy, one of those that looks like it's going to rain at any moment, but the rain doesn't come. I got up early, even though I had barely slept. Joseph was still in bed, awake, looking at the ceiling. "Good morning," I said quietly. He turned his face to me. His eyes were still red, tired, but there was something different in them. A determination I hadn't seen in a long time. "Good morning," he answered. "Go down, make coffee, I'm coming." I went down to the kitchen with my heart tight. I put the coffee on. I separated the bread, butter, cheese. I did everything automatically because my mind was elsewhere. I was preparing myself for what was coming. He took about 20 minutes to come down. When he appeared in the kitchen, he had showered, shaved, with a clean shirt, as if he were getting ready for something important. And it was, right? It was the most important moment of our 35 years together. We sat at the table, neither of us touched the food. We just stayed there holding the cups of hot coffee, looking at each other. "Where do I start?" he said, more to himself than to me. "From the beginning," I answered. "When did it happen?" He breathed deeply several times, closed his eyes as if going back in time, reliving everything. "It was in 1969, August 1969. I was 24 years old. We weren't even married yet, remember? We were only going to marry in December." I nodded. My heart was already racing. At that time I worked at the steel mill, you know. But I also did something else. I participated in a group of young people from the church. We met to study the Bible, to discuss how to help the poor, those things. It was a group linked to liberation theology. You know that movement the church had to help those in need? He stopped, took a sip of coffee. His hand was shaking a little. "I never told you because at that time it was dangerous, very dangerous. The government didn't like these groups. They thought it was communist stuff, subversive. But we weren't any of that, Mary. We just wanted to help. We distributed food to people in the projects, taught children to read, those things." He made a long pause. I didn't interrupt, just waited. "There was a priest in the group, Father John, a good man, Mary, very good. He organized everything, and there were about 10, 12 other young people, guys and girls from the church. Everyone good people, family people, workers." His voice started to tremble. "One day, it was a Thursday. I remember to this day, August 14th, 1969. I was leaving work. It was about 6 in the evening. My shift had just ended. I was walking down the street, going to catch the bus when a car pulled up beside me, a black sedan. 2 men in suits got out. They grabbed me, one on each side, and threw me inside the car. I put my hand to my mouth. Even knowing that this had happened more than 30 years ago, my body reacted as if it were happening at that moment. I tried to scream, tried to break free, but it was impossible. They were strong, trained. They put a cloth in my mouth, tied my hands. Everything happened so fast that when I realized, the car was already moving, and nobody on the street had noticed anything, or if they noticed, they pretended they didn't see. It was like that at that time, Mary. People were afraid. He stopped again, wiped the tears that were starting to fall. They took me to a place. I don't know where it was. They put a blindfold on me on the way. When they took off the blindfold, I was in a small room, no window, just a bright light on the ceiling that hurt my eyes. There was a table, a chair, and there were 3 men there. His voice was getting lower and lower. I had to make an effort to hear. They started asking. They asked about the church group. They wanted names. They wanted to know where we met, who participated, what we were planning. I said we weren't planning anything, that we just helped the poor, but they didn't believe. They said we were a communist cell, that we were plotting against the government, that we were receiving money from outside. He was shaking now, shaking all over. I tried to explain, Mary. I swear I tried. I said they were wrong, that we weren't doing anything wrong, but the more I talked, the more nervous they got. They said I was lying, that I was protecting terrorists. He fell silent, stayed a few minutes in silence, just looking at the coffee cup. When he spoke again, his voice was almost a whisper. Then they started with their methods to make me talk, to make me confess things I hadn't done. I couldn't take it. I got up from the chair, went around the table and hugged him from behind. I felt him stiffen in my hug, but I didn't let go. "You don't need to tell the details," I said in his ear. "You don't need to relive this." "I need to," he said, his voice suddenly firm. "I need to because if I don't tell now, I'll never be able to, and you deserve to know. You deserve to know who you lived with all these years." I went back to my chair, took his hand across the table. He squeezed my hand hard. "It was 4 days, 4 days in that place. They beat me, drowned me in a basin of water, hung me up. You know what that is?" I nodded yes. I had read about it in the old newspapers at the library, but reading and hearing from my husband was completely different. And there was the electric shock. They put those wires, put them in various parts of the body and... His voice was lost. He was sobbing now. "And the burns, with cigarettes, with hot iron. They said if I didn't talk, they would make it worse. They would kill me. They would get you, too." My blood froze. That's when I started making things up. To protect you, Mary. To protect the group. I gave false names, false addresses. I made up meetings that never existed. I said everything they wanted to hear, but nothing was true. He looked at me with so much pain in his eyes that I almost couldn't take it. I broke, Mary. I couldn't take it. I wasn't strong enough. I begged them to stop. I cried. I screamed. "Stop," I said firmly, squeezing his hand more. "You didn't break. You survived. There's a difference." "You don't understand," he said. "I always thought every man thinks he would be strong if something like that happened, that he would endure, that he wouldn't cry, that he wouldn't beg. But when the time comes, when the pain is so much that you can't even think straight..." He covered his face with his free hands. "On the 4th day, they realized that I really didn't know anything, that I was making it up. I think they checked the names and addresses I gave and saw they didn't exist. One of the men came into the room and said, 'You're not who we were looking for, you idiot.' They had confused me with someone else. Another Joseph, who also worked at a steel mill, also went to church, but who really was involved in political stuff. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. 'You mean that all of this was a mistake?' 'It was,' he said bitterly. 'Their mistake. They got the wrong person. Tortured the wrong person. And you know what they did when they found out? Nothing. They just threw me on a street far from where they picked me up at dawn. Before letting me go, one of them said to me, 'If you tell anyone what happened here, we'll come back, and next time we'll get your fiancé too, understood?' I understood. Tears were running down my face. They left me on a street in the middle of the night, hurt, bleeding, barely able to walk. I managed to get to a public hospital. I said I had been mugged, that they beat me. The doctors took care of what they could take care of. They stitched some cuts, bandaged the broken ribs. But the burns, they said, would leave marks forever. And they did. He lifted his shirt a little, showing me part of the scars I already knew. I stayed hospitalized 3 days. When I left, I went straight to my parents' house. They were shocked. They wanted to know what had happened. I told the same story. Mugging. My father didn't believe it much. I think he suspected, but didn't insist. At that time, it was better not to insist. I stayed at their house about 15 days recovering. Do you remember when I disappeared those weeks? I remembered. He had sent a message through a friend saying he had gone to solve a family problem out of town. At the time, I thought it was strange, but didn't question. When I came back, when I saw you again, I wanted to tell you. I really wanted to, but I was afraid. Afraid they would carry out the threat, afraid they would get you too. So I kept quiet. I pretended everything was fine. We got married in December as planned. We built our life, had our children, and I never told. He breathed deeply. But the marks never healed properly, Mary. Some got infected, others stayed open. Even today, after more than 30 years, there are days they bleed. There are days the pain is so strong I can't move properly. That's why I woke up at 4 a.m, to take care of them alone, to clean, to put medicine, so nobody would see, so nobody would ask. He looked at me with those tired, suffering eyes. And there was the shame, Mary, the shame of having broken, of having cried, of having begged. What kind of man does that? What kind of man am I? I couldn't take it anymore. I got up from the chair, pulled him to stand up too, and hugged. I hugged with all the strength I had. You're the kind of man who survived, I said in his ear. You're the kind of man who endured 35 years of pain in silence to protect his family. You're the kind of man who woke up every day at 4 a.m. to take care of wounds that weren't your fault. You're the bravest man I know. He collapsed in my arms, really collapsed, his whole body shaking from crying so much. We went to the floor right there in the kitchen and stayed hugging, both crying, both feeling the weight of those 35 years of secret finally being released. I don't know how long we stayed there. The coffee got cold, the day brightened outside, and we continued there on the kitchen floor, hugging. When we finally got up, it was almost noon. I prepared a light lunch. Neither of us was very hungry, but we needed to eat something. While I cooked, he sat at the table, looking at his own hands. There's one more thing, he said suddenly. I stopped stirring the pot and looked at him. The church group. After they released me, I found out they got other people too. They got Father John, they got 3 guys from the group. One of them never came back. The others came back, but came back different, destroyed. He wiped his eyes. The group ended. Everyone was afraid. The church closed its doors to that kind of work. And I felt guilty. Guilty because maybe it was because of me. Maybe in the middle of the things I made up under torture came out something that led them to the real group. Joseph, you can't blame yourself for that, I said, going to him. You were being tortured. You had no control over anything. I know, he said. My head knows, but my heart carries that guilt every day. I sat on his lap carefully not to hurt his back. I took his face in my hands. Look at me, I said. He looked. Nothing that happened was your fault. Nothing. You were a victim, you and all those people. And for 35 years you carried this alone. But you won't carry it alone anymore. From today, we carry it together. Understood? He nodded, yes, tears falling again. We spent the rest of that Sunday talking. He told me more details, not of the bad moments. Those he didn't want to relive in detail, but of after. He told me how difficult it was to return to normal life, how he had nightmares every night, how any loud noise made him jump, how he had developed the habit of waking up early because he couldn't sleep through the night without having nightmares. Over time, it got better, he said. The nightmares decreased, the startle at noises passed, but the wounds, the physical wounds, never healed properly. And the wounds of the soul, those didn't either. That night when we went to bed, he told me, "I'm not going to hide anymore. Tomorrow, when I go to take care of the wounds, I'll leave the door open. You can come in if you want. You can help me." "I will want to," I said, "for the rest of my life, if necessary." That night, he slept better than he had slept in years. I noticed he didn't have nightmares, didn't wake up startled. He slept through the night, his hand holding mine, and when it was 4 in the morning, as always, he woke up. But this time he didn't go alone. We went together. We went down to the bathroom, he with the medicines and gauze, me with a heart full of love and determination to help. It was painful to see those wounds all up close. It was painful to put medicine, to clean, to take care. But it was less painful than knowing he had done that alone for 35 years. And there, in that dawn of April 14th, 2003, began a new phase of our life, the phase of truth. The phase of carrying together the weight he had carried alone for so long. The phase of finally truly being one. The days that followed that Sunday were of reconstruction, not of reconstruction of walls or furniture, but of reconstruction of us, of reconstruction of our marriage, which had been so strong for 35 years, but that had an invisible crack in the middle, the secret. Every day at 4 in the morning, I woke up together with him. At first, he still resisted a little, said I didn't need to, that I could keep sleeping, but I insisted, and over time he got used to it, accepted it, let me take care of him the way he always took care of me. I learned to clean the wounds properly. The doctor we went to see, because yes, I insisted he go to a real doctor, taught me the right techniques. She was an older lady, close to retiring, and when she saw the marks on Joseph's body, she didn't ask questions, just looked at him with those eyes that said, "I know what happened." She prescribed better, more modern medicines and said, "Take good care of him, Mrs. Mary. He deserves it." Those words stayed with me. He deserves. My Joseph deserved everything good this world could offer, after everything he had been through. With proper treatment, some wounds that kept opening started healing better. They didn't heal completely. The doctor said that after so long, some never would, but they improved. His pain decreased. It didn't disappear, but it decreased. And that was already an immense relief. But it wasn't just the body that needed care. It was the soul, too. The nightmares that had decreased over the years came back for a while after he told everything. It was as if, by opening that box of memories, everything came to the surface again. There were nights he woke up sweating cold, screaming. I would hug him, say everything was okay, that it had already passed, that he was safe. One day, about 3 weeks after that conversation in the kitchen, I suggested he talk to someone, a professional. At that time, it wasn't as common as it is today, but psychologists already existed. He resisted at first. "That's nonsense, Mary. I've already endured 35 years. I'll endure the rest." "It's not nonsense," I said firmly. "It's care. You took care of the wounds of the body all these years. Now you need to take care of the wounds that nobody sees." It took 2 more weeks for him to accept, but he accepted. He started going to a psychologist every week. The first time he came back from the appointment, I asked how it was. "Difficult," he said. "Very difficult. But I think good too." He continued going month after month, and I saw the difference. I saw him getting lighter. It wasn't that the pain or memories had disappeared. Those things never really disappear. But he learned to live with them in a better way. He learned it wasn't weakness to have cried, to have begged. He learned he was human, and that any human being would have reacted the same way. Our children noticed something had changed at home. John and Anna, already adults at that time, started asking. They noticed we were different, but united somehow. One day, it was in July 2003, we called them for a conversation. Joseph told everything, not in the heaviest details, but told enough for them to understand. He told that he had been arrested by mistake in 1969, that he had been hurt, that he had carried this alone during all those years. John cried. My 33-year-old son, a grown man, cried like a child, hugged his father and apologized. Apologize for what? Joseph asked. For all the times I complained that you were distant, that you didn't play right with me when I was a child, that you didn't talk much. I thought you didn't care much about me. Joseph hugged his son hard. I always cared. Always. You and your sister are what I love most in this life, along with your mother. If I was distant, it was because I was afraid. Afraid of getting too attached and something happening. Afraid you would discover what had happened to me and think I was weak. Afraid of everything. Anna also cried, held her father's hand and said, You're the strongest man I've ever known, Dad, and I'm so proud to be your daughter. That day, our family became complete in a way it had never been before. Because now there were no more secrets, no more invisible walls. There was only truth, love, and the certainty that together we could face anything. Joseph continued going to therapy for 2 more years. The wounds on his body improved significantly with proper treatment. The nightmares became less frequent. The pain, although it never completely disappeared, became more manageable. And every morning at 4 a.m., we would wake up together. But now it wasn't a moment of loneliness and suffering for him. It was our moment, a moment of connection, of care, of love. Sometimes we would just sit there in the bathroom in silence, me helping him with the bandages. Other times we would talk about life, about memories, about dreams for the future. Joseph lived another 15 years after that Sunday when he finally told me the truth. He passed away in 2018, at 75 years old. It wasn't from the old wounds, it was just age, life running its course. But those 15 years, those were the best years of our marriage. Because they were years of complete truth, of shared burden, of true unity. In his last days, when he was in the hospital bed, he held my hand and said, Thank you, Mary. Thank you for looking through that keyhole. Thank you for not giving up on knowing. Thank you for carrying this with me. I cried, but they were tears of gratitude. Gratitude for having had the courage to seek the truth, for having had 15 years of true transparency with the man I loved. Now, at 78 years old, living alone in this house full of memories, I decided to tell this story. Not for pity, not for attention, but because I know there are other Josephs out there. People carrying pain and shame from things that weren't their fault. People who survive terrible things and think they're weak because they broke, because they cried, because they're human. I want these people to know that surviving is the greatest act of courage, that enduring is strength, that asking for help isn't weakness. And I want the families of these people to know that love, true love, means carrying the weight together, means seeking the truth even when it's scary, means standing by each other through the darkest nights. Joseph was tortured for 4 days by his own government, by mistake, and carried the physical and emotional scars for 35 years in silence. But when the truth finally came out, when we finally shared that burden, he found peace. Not complete peace, because some wounds never fully heal, but enough peace to live his remaining years with dignity, with love, and without shame. That's what I want to leave with you today. If you know someone who's carrying something heavy, be patient, be loving. Create a safe space for them to share when they're ready. And if you're the one carrying something, know that you don't have to carry it alone. There are people who love you, who will stand by you, who will help you carry that weight. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for being here with me, from wherever you are. Please leave a like if this story touched you. Subscribe to the Grandma's Diary channel, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Your support means the world to me, and helps me continue sharing these important stories. Until next time, take care of yourselves and take care of each other.